I mean.
Just tackle it.
Down in the face.
Dates.
Or my son, they are.
Ready? You ready to start? You know when. Ready? On the record? Okay, it's 5 o'clock, 5:03, and calling the Lincoln City Urban Renewal Agency meeting together. We do a roll call.
Don Williams,
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Here.
Riley Hoagland.
Here.
Deanna Hinton.
Here.
Kip Ward.
Here.
Susan Walke is absent, and Judy Casper.
Here. Okay. I don't see any citizens present. How about the minutes of the meeting from March 22nd? Is there a motion to accept the minutes as written?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion? Okay.
Just, if I could just, we should have the discussion in between. The motion, the second, discussion, vote.
Is there a discussion? Okay. So I guess we accept the minutes. Special order of business presentations. First one is the facade improvement, the loan program. Allison?
Good evening, agency members.
Good evening.
Hi there.
Hi. As you might remember, in March, the agency decided to proceed with disbursement of funds on a facade improvement loan that was approved in September. And in this particular case, disbursement of the funds was similar to a line of credit rather than the typical way that the program works or has worked since 1999, which is similar to a construction loan. And in order to accommodate the change in the way the loan funds were dispersed, the agency requested that staff provide a language revision to the program to increase flexibility for future loan applicants that are property owners wanting to do their own work on projects that meet the program objectives with minimal risk. So I do have that language revision for the program before you. Basically, the text in bold on the program information, what it says now is the bank loan is a construction type loan. Funds are dispersed as work is completed and verified. And I would suggest adding, in cases where the property owner is able to do the work themselves without using a licensed contractor, by applicable code and ability, the agency can consider disbursement of funds for materials not labor, similar to a line of credit, with any added conditions to reduce risk on a case-by-case basis. So, and the city attorney has reviewed that language, and if you have any questions, additions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would. I like the wording. I would ask us to consider adding, if you don't mind, in that word, in the section that you're looking to add, right after able. So in cases where the property owner is able, then suggest and demonstrates the skill to do the work themselves. I think they would just demonstrate to staff that they have the, and by whatever means, you're comfortable with their skill level. But I think if we're saying we're looking not to have a contractor, then I think having the skill to do whatever they're proposing would make sense.
If I may, Madam
Yes.
Commissioner, Chairman, I'm sorry. How would, that's a big task for Allison to evaluate. I mean, if he says, I've got carpentry skills, do we have to do a physical demonstration, or are you just asking for like a resume of past?
Well, if I can, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I purposely tried to leave that open, but there would be a number. One, remember, you're asking for an exception. So now it behooves the person asking to demonstrate their skill.
Right.
Because otherwise we'll default to get a contractor, would be my bias. So the answer I would, if I were sitting in staff, would say, so what have you done as far as, have you remodeled something? Could I take a look at it? And depending on what they're asking to do, you know, if it's all, well, it has to be facade, so there's some carpenter work. Maybe they've been a contractor and just no longer have the license or something. So, you know,
I understand what you're
if
after.
it's your, well, and I don't have the answer, but if it's your 75,000, you're going to make sure the person, you know, has some kind of skill level, or a brother-in-law or somebody who's, you know, working with it, just convince staff that, or loan committee.
Would, Councilor Anderson, would it be included there? See the parentheses?
Yep.
By applicable code and ability, would that cover it?
Well, I'm still looking for the individual who's going to bypass a contractor.
To me, when I read that, I thought the ability applied to the property owner by applicable code and ability. What is it, Allison? What is it?
Yeah, I put that in there just so that we could ask that question. It could be paint and siding, replacing a front door, installing an awning. It could be something that's a fairly straightforward improvement, or it could be something, in the case of our last loan, there's some roofing that is involved, and our loan officer had spoken with the applicant, and in his letter, which was in your packet on March 27th, the loan officer did mention that, you know, he had some concerns about the quality of work. With a contractor that's licensed, there are certain thresholds of quality that are just kind of embedded in the nature of being licensed and having experience. And in some cases, many people who are not licensed contractors do have great experience, but it's kind of a gray area, which is why we haven't done it before. This is providing the language in the program so that we can revisit that. I don't know that, you know, in our loan approval process where we take the information to the loan committee and then they make the recommendation to take it to the agency, I feel as though there are some steps and conversations about each application where I don't feel as though I would be making a decision that I don't think should, if I weren't comfortable moving it forward, then we would talk about that at the loan committee level and make sure that you all are informed and feeling comfortable as well. So, yeah, I mean, we don't want someone who's never picked up a hammer to say that they want to replace windows on a commercial building unless, you know, we've talked about it.
If I can.
Yes.
What bothers me, not bothers me, but what you want to be careful about, I believe, is this is a line of credit. That's a draw before the work is performed. So what you're going to have is theoretically a guy who puts something together and it doesn't meet code, and you've already dispersed the funds. Versus on a contractor, you're going to wait until it's in place and done and disperse funds. That's my concern about at least leaving something in your wording that allows you to get comfortable with the person that's saying they can get the job done, because you're going to be advancing funds.
And it would be for the first disbursement that would be the most risk. And so the worst-case scenario is you do the first disbursement, you see the work is not of quality, and then you decide not to do the second disbursement. I mean, there's a risk on both sides for that, leaving an improvement half done. And then, of course, every application has a different loan request. So you would want to think about how much of that loan request you would want to give. How much does someone need to get started in terms of, are the material costs 50% of what they're requesting or 10% of what they're requesting? And these are all, you know, I do think that if this were to come up again, we would want to talk about that particular application, and is the agency comfortable with the experience that the person is saying they have, or the work that's involved, the request that's being made, and then if you are, how much you feel would be reasonable and of little risk as possible to do that initial disbursement until you know that the work can be done in a competent fashion.
Yes.
When we're dealing with commercial property, most of the time you, by law, have to have a contractor, don't you? I mean, on your home, you can puddle around, do whatever you choose, but on commercial, if you're going to put up siding or a roof, that has to be done by, my recollection was that has to be done by a contractor, a licensed contractor.
If you are the property owner, you do not need to have a licensed contractor
Really?
for all work. For
Did
some
that
work, it's okay.
recently change?
I don't know. I just know that in this case of the recent application that you all approved, that I spoke with the building official, and he said it's the property owner or their employees, but no other. I mean, you can't call your buddies and say, hey, let's re-side my building. It's only the property owner.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Allison, if this is a language revision for the agency, and we pass a language revision that would allow a property owner to do the work on their own property, like we're saying, does the applicant, where this has all come from, have to go through that whole process, and will the agency look at whether or not they feel that individual is comfortable in order to do the work? Or are we past that, and if we pass it, then it will occur?
This is one of those situations where when we put a program out there, we have kind of a suspicion of how it will be used, but we don't know for sure until we make it available. In this case, it was, made available as a line of credit once. I don't know if others will be interested in doing the same thing, and because it's new, I would definitely be bringing it to the loan committee for review, maybe even depending on how that conversation goes, if they want more information. And this has happened in the past. If there's an application where the loan committee wants further information, I will go back to the applicant, ask more clarifying questions, or the loan officer, and then we'll have a second loan committee meeting. So we really don't move things forward to the agency until the loan committee is comfortable. And in some cases, the loan committee may not be comfortable, staff may not be comfortable, and we may just say, this isn't the right fit for the program and for the use of public funds.
So we, as the budget committee, could, or not the budget committee, the urban renewal agency, I'm sorry, could say, yes, let's change it, and also, no, we don't want to provide this for this applicant.
Correct, yes. Each loan comes before you.
Right, so this is not going to approve that loan.
You already approved that loan.
Oh, we already did? Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
On March 27th,
Oh.
we brought this before you, and you made an exception because the program language, it was atypical for the program. So you made an exception, and now we're following up with changing the program so it catches up with that exception.
So this would be saying yes to that applicant, to be able to do that work.
The applicant has already been given
Oh, he's already
permission,
been there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
How is-
So this is just changing the language of the program guidelines
All
for
right.
future
All right.
applications.
Now I'm
Yes.
caught up to speed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is there discussion about inserting ability and skill? Is that
Well,
accepted?
I would have, I'm sure I would have one more question.
Okay.
This would be followed by a rigorous inspection process, is that correct?
Well, I don't know what you mean by rigorous inspection.
Means before walls closed in, you know, you go in and you.
Yes, this is
Check that
not
type of-
exempting people from permitting, inspection. This just means that they are responsible for permitting and inspection. And in cases of electrical and plumbing, you cannot get around that as a property owner. You have to do those, you would have to have a contractor for that type of work. So it's not for all work. It's just for the work that the city code and state codes allow property owners to do on their own buildings.
Yes.
I mean, I would entertain having some kind of portfolio or some way for them to show that they are capable of the work. I mean, they're asking for an exception, and as an exception, they should have to provide some proof of that. I mean, I agree.
Any further discussion? So by inserting "and skill," would that be what you would imply by that? Showing something?
And demonstrates the skill.
And demonstrates the
skills
skill?
necessary to complete the work which they're proposing. I mean,
Certainly, painting, as the mayor's indicated, you know, wouldn't take too much, I wouldn't think, but if they're, you know, framing and,
electrical work.
well, yeah, that,
You know,
well, they would, that one, you'd have to have a
Yeah.
contractor anyway.
Also, not all work.
Not all work.
But I think what it does for me is it just demonstrates that, you know, the agency's going to take a look at it, and you just can't say, you know, today I'm going to be a carpenter. So building sawhorses or something, show us a picture.
We're asking we're asking for when they're requesting money. This isn't just a typical business owner doing their own maintenance. I mean, this isn't, we're not going to be watching to see who's painting their.
So we want to insert, be able to demonstrate the skill to do the work?
So I have, in cases where the property owner is able and demonstrates the skill to do the work themselves without using a licensed contractor, that's what I've got written down, is that,
Yep. About Mr. Apicello. That'd be so.
Look at that look.
It's not a lawyer question.
Not-
It's
it's
a
not-
judgment call of
Yeah,
a
it's not at
lender. You're lending money in advance, hoping that someone can do what they say they're going to do, without the benefit of a licensed contractor that you could go back after.
So are we in consensus with this? Do we have to vote on it? We do?
Consider it a motion, then?
You want a motion?
yeah, since it's a program change, it would be
Okay.
great to have.
All right. So someone want to make a motion to, what was the language insertion?
I'd make motion to insert after is able, insert and demonstrates the skill.
Is there a second?
Second.
First, second,
Discussion.
discussion? All in favor? Discussion? Mr. Counselor Williams?
Thank you. I'm just going to say I'm going to vote no simply because I'm just not satisfied that I think it's asking a lot of the director, and it could be Allison. Allison could leave tomorrow, and we're leaving it in somebody else's hands to sort through this, and I'm not entirely comfortable. I understand where you're going. I'm just not entirely comfortable.
Correct? If I
Counselor,
could
yes.
comment to that before. The catcher would be staff. The loan committee would make the decision. I think by inserting it in this language, there's flexibility there, so it's a judgment of the agency. And what it does is puts the public potential borrower on notice that they're going to have to somehow demonstrate their ability. So I agree with you. You know, it's not staff, but there's different processes of screening, because if you can't make staff happy, you know, you're certainly not going to make loan committee happy and then the agency. So to me, it's just a heads up.
Fully understand it.
Because I think the same thing will happen. As long as I'm on the committee, agency, and it comes, I'm going to ask that question every time. So you might as well know it up front. And that's all I'm suggesting, is let's tell them what we're going to be looking at.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just wanted to say that I think with that additional language, it's much stronger, and I agree with it.
Okay, all in favor of the motion accepting and demonstrates the skill to be inserted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Okay.
Carries.
Next item is,
Quick question before we, is the rest of this that was attached with that, the loan program, now, will that actually get updated as well? So that kind of flexibility wording that you inserted will move over into this?
Yes, we'll update that document, repost it to the website,
Okay.
reprint them in the office for people to pick up.
Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
Could you look at front page and property owners, under property owners? 75,000 maximum secured loan to property owners per property? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the way we used to do it was $75,000 per property, and then a couple years ago, you had made a change to the program to allow a maximum of $150,000. And if you'd like, we can change that, but basically what it is $75,000 is the loan amount up to 150. We didn't want to advertise straight off the bat that it was up to 150. We wanted to make sure that we had that option, but it's still a $75,000 loan. It's just that you can get two of them if the project is needing that amount of funding. So do you think the per property language is confusing?
Yeah, because
Yeah, I do too. And I hadn't seen that. I just know that we had updated the paragraph below that last time. If you look on page
down
1 near the bottom.
all the way down.
And so if you all are okay with me changing that, removing the per property.
Maximum.
That would help clarify that earlier change that was made.
any other discussion?
I just want to ask a follow-up question to that. So does that mean that if somebody owns two pieces of property, maybe adjacent to one another, one down the street, and they want to do facade work on both of them because they have two new businesses, does this, is that maybe where that 75 per property came from?
Yes. And we have had that happen. We have had people who own more than one property take advantage of the program, and we really just wanted to limit the person getting more than 150, even though we want to see improvements on the street. We just didn't, we needed to have a cap so that we made sure we could spread the funds around. That's kind of where that came from. Yeah.
Counselor Williams?
Which I've never quite understood. The goal is to improve facades. I don't really care how many properties get improved and if they all belong to one guy or not. The point was we want these to look better. It seems kind of, I don't have the right word, but like we're trying to not let someone get away with something, even though they're not getting away with something, because it's just a loan and it's just an improvement, and I don't really care who gets it. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think we were just trying to avoid someone using all the loan funds that we had available for, so that was the concern, was making it available to many people.
I sure
And that was
understand. but,
initially, yeah.
I still go back to my issue is, it was to get facades improved. It didn't say whose. So,
Any other discussion? I have one question, Allison. Under conditions and considerations, number 7, it says if the applicant is not the owner of the property, written authorization from the property owner must be submitted. What does that mean? Is it some kind of notarized?
It's basically a letter from the property owner saying that they allow the business owner to do the improvements that they're requesting. There are 2 ways you can use this program. One is for if you're the property owner, and the other is for if you're the business owner. If you're the business owner, you can borrow up to $5,000. So that could be a different type of window. It could be a front door or an awning, just something to spruce up the front of the business. And maybe the property owner isn't wanting to take out the loan, but is okay with the business owner taking out the loan.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Okay.
Okay, moving along to an update on capital projects. I'm happy to go through this or just answer questions for the sake of time. Basically, this is an update on Cutler projects. So we have the Schooner Point Highway 101 turnout construction. We're still waiting for a finalized design, which we should receive any day, and then resubmit that to ODOT per their request to do some revisions in order to get a permit, and then we'll be ready to bid and construct that turnout project. Question?
May I ask a
Yeah.
For the Cutler projects, the first one, the Schooner Point turnout, the third bullet, it says $180,000 is budgeted for construction in the UR general fund. Other funding, I can't see, let me see. Other funds may be needed for construction management. What other funds and from what fund?
Yeah,
Is
so
that just open-ended at this point, or do we know?
yeah, this is the first project where we're partnering with Public Works. There are lots of different ways to implement urban renewal projects, and different cities do it different ways. The way that we've traditionally done projects is urban renewal has done the concept, the design, and the construction, and we have paid the costs of all of those different phases of doing a project. And with this project, just because of staffing and different things on the plate of urban renewal staff, also changing focus more to economic development rather than the capital projects. We've been working closely with Public Works on this in hopes of passing the baton for construction. They have a very well-experienced and capable engineering staff, and this is the first project where they would be doing the bidding for us, and there may or may not be some added construction management costs that they hadn't planned on. We also have a landscape architect on this project that had done the design, and there's a state requirement that they be involved in construction management. So urban renewal would pay for that portion of the construction process rather than Public Works. Okay, next project is Southwest Jetty Realignment Design. This one obviously is in design. We're about 70% complete. There are going to be some other steps like legal and easement. We're relocating an existing street and moving it, teeing it up to the highway, so it becomes a two-way rather than a one-way street. And this one we're anticipating would be August bidding and then fall construction. The Siletz Baywalk sidewalk design, this would connect the two turnouts on Highway 101 in Cutler City. And that one we are about 10% design layout, and we're going to tackle this one more after the Schooner Point turnout is constructed, mostly for staff timing and then conversations with ODOT. We find it's easier if we just do one permitting process with ODOT at a time so that they're not commingling all the projects and asking more complicated questions. So we're just going to kind of let this one sit for a little bit until the Schooner Point project is done, and then we'll pick this back up and revisit this one with them. There's also the Roby's redevelopment project. We have some sidewalk funding between 62nd and 63rd in Cutler City, and that is a project we're also partnering with Public Works. They're doing the design, and we will put $50,000 towards that project to be constructed probably June or July. And then the Bay Access project, this is a small property which was acquired earlier this year, late last year, which is on the Siletz Bay. And it's the only public access between Taft and Josephine Young Park in Cutler City. And we have an idea of what we want to do there, but we just haven't had time to flesh that out. It would basically connect the Schooner Point turnout down to the bay in a more safe manner. And because of the topography issues and possible permitting with DSL, we need more time to look at that. And then we also don't have budget allocated for that project yet. So,
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry. For the Roby's redevelopment, so that's going to be only in front of that, or where the crab pot used to be as well? I remember that person was waiting, anticipating that tee out and
yes.
all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it will go from that all the way across them to ProBuild
It is not including ProBuild.
up to?
Roby's is really just from 62nd to 63rd. And yes, ProBuild's not part of that. Where the Crab Pot property is, that will be part of the jetty realignment project.
okay.
So Crab Pot is, we're moving forward with that one, the same as we're moving forward with the Roby's.
Okay, I was concerned that it would go to the parking lot, nothing in front of the Crab Pot, and then sidewalk in front of.
Yeah, I think the Crab Pot has sidewalk on Highway 101
Oh, yeah, that's
already,
right.
I think.
That's right.
So we'll do that corner where the new street comes in, and then also along the street, new street. North End projects, just a quick update. The Rhodes End South 50th Street Pump Station, the contractor is underway. They've ordered materials, and then most of that project will begin in August. And the pumps have about a 6-month lead time, so that's partly why they haven't gotten started more than they have now. So that one is moving along. Are there any questions on the projects? Yeah?
These were included in your list that you gave us, and those were the projects that were in motion already. Is that correct?
Yes. Mhm. Other than the Bay Access project, which is listed here. That one is number 30 in your master list, and that one we had estimated at $100,000. So
And we haven't, did we talk about that at all?
we haven't. It's on the list, and but no, it's because it was a new property acquisition. It was a new concept and a new opportunity. So it may be possible that we can do it with less money, and it's on our list to look at internally for design to see how complicated it would be. It may be very simple, straightforward project, but we just don't know at this time because it's a new idea.
And, okay, yeah, so we'll get a chance to look at these in detail as you go along?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
So prioritization of projects, I know we have about a half hour left. I wanted to just kind of circle back with you about your short list of potential projects. The agency met most recently in March, and you all had created a narrowed down list of projects. This is in regards to the upcoming bond sale, which is just under $3 million for remaining projects. And the bond advisors do have sufficient detail to pursue financing, but they advise the agency to wait on the bond sale until you have more clarity on the expenditure of the funds before entering into a loan. Once the funds are borrowed, interest will accrue at a rate higher than you will be able to invest the funds. So the longer the money sits without being spent, the more it will cost the agency. So the process to obtain funds is about 6 to 8 weeks. It's a fairly short process. And so staff is really bringing this short list back to you so that you can talk more about hopefully making a decision soon or whenever you're ready, so that staff can get the funding in place for you to do the projects you want to do.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I recently created a survey for part of this. Could I submit that somehow? Like an online survey of like what public would be? I just don't know how to bring it.
I'd be happy to look at it. I really, the decision is ultimately all of yours.
Right.
So I think that that's great information, but I think,
For you as well as for the rest of this committee, I don't know how to disperse that in the correct fashion. So it's maybe for you, but also for Chair Kathy, I don't know.
It would, Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
it would be, my opinion, that if you have a copy, you'd share it with us now, since we're going to talk about these things now. And one for the staff and one for the clerk.
Okay.
Do you have that?
Yes. I could print it off. I don't know how to do it. That's what I mean.
Is it lengthy?
No. It's
you
not.
read it?
It's like 8 or 9 questions, and it had the top.
Was that your Facebook survey?
Correct.
Those open-ended questions that led to consumer to come to unusual opinions?
No. Very specific. Anyway, I email them. Kathy,
If you email it to me, I can print it off and make copies real quick.
okay, I will do so.
Do they coincide with some of the shortlist project as well?
Correct.
Okay.
I just have to figure it out.
So what do we, did I hear you ask the agency to narrow it to the $3 million approximate? So this is a nice list, decide how you want to spend it. Is that the nuts and bolts of it
Yes,
now?
in part or in full.
Okay. Madam Chair, what happens if it doesn't, with the leftover money? Does that need to be defined, or can it be a contingency fund? Will it be? Is that how that would be framed, or?
Yeah, the guiding document for all expenditures is the Urban Renewal Plan, the 1988 plan. So I don't think you'd want to overspend. Again, it's cart and horse, and I know it's difficult to anticipate if you want to move a few projects forward, what that end project will cost. With capital improvements, that's fairly typical. So we would, if you spent over, we would have to find sources from somewhere else to complete a project or finish a project. Ron, do you have anything to add?
The reason we're asking for this now is that we don't want to proceed with the bond issuance and then be paying interest without being able to start the project. And so we want to time those two things together so that when the bond issuance is done, we're ready to go and we're not paying interest on work that's not being done.
If I can, I guess I'm just pushing for clarity, but for example, if the agency was to vote for undergrounding and economic development toolkit, those two items, and as I recall, those two items didn't amount to $3 million as we had talked about them before. So if it amounted to, say, 2.5 or 2.8 million, the excess funds, I guess I want to make sure is loose enough where it can be a contingency for if undergrounding went over, that we could dip in.
Sure.
And then when those projects were done, that we could come back and look at the list again in order to.
Sure. That would be in both cases. You could use the remaining portion as a contingency just in case there was an overage. And if the budget, if it comes in under budget or you haven't needed that contingency, then you could use those remaining funds for another project.
Okay. Thank you.
Or likewise, if we didn't need the $3 million, we wouldn't have to have a $3 million bond, right? If the projects didn't amount to that much.
Well, we have, it's just under 3 million, and we have that left in our overall maximum indebtedness for this
Okay.
particular district. So I think that you will want to take that. The costs of selling the bond, if the bond is not large enough, it doesn't really rationalize the costs to sell the bond. You know, if you wanted to do a sidewalk for $50,000, we would probably find a different financing plan than doing a $3 million bond sale. But there are costs with doing more transactions. So,
Any other discussion? Yes.
And you want to do that tonight?
As soon as we can, so we can move forward with the financing.
There's 9 items here. Each of those you could discuss for an hour.
yes, and this is your list.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it's an extensive list.
To rush this decision in 15 minutes, you're almost guaranteed to make a poor decision. And
Yeah, this item will be on your agenda until it's decided. And we haven't had a meeting since March, so it's,
I would say, let's set some time aside, and we've got it down to 9, which is down from 100 and whatever, and because a couple of these are a hogger. You do them, and there's a chance you won't be able to do much else, just a chance. So if we can, a couple of the counselors feel very strongly about some of the other items, so rather than rush it, I would like to let it play out a little bit and make sure each of the counselors have their ideas vetted.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We do have the Economic Development Work Session, 2:30 on Monday, the 15th, followed by budget at 5:30. I can't imagine the work session is going to take an hour.
I believe the work session, we have a little bit left over on workforce housing to address, because that was cut a little bit short because of the visioning on the last work session. So we'll have a little carryover on workforce housing and then economic development.
I think we'll probably take 2 hours, Mayor.
Okay, well, I was just trying to find a place to shoehorn it.
But, well, what we'll end up doing is Allison said, is we will put this on for your next agenda. And if we can, we'll try to make sure that this is the only thing on the agenda. But we'll see how that plays out as we go forward with putting the agenda together.
Is there a drop-dead deadline to apply? Yesterday.
Yes. It's when we need to pay off the next bond.
It's when?
We need to pay off the next bond, which is in June of 2018.
Okay.
And so what you have to do is, we can update the calendar. You have to work back from when the bond issuance date is to make sure you get all of the proper notifications, publications, and so forth. So we will provide an update of the time frame it takes to issue a bond.
And I have a question too about this. When I'm looking at this list, there are things that, for me, fit nicely under urban renewal. And there's some things on here that I kind of think, well, maybe that would fit under parks, and maybe like the teen youth center and the sanitary sewer would fit under, we already have public works elsewhere, and the homeless center, I don't know if that belongs here anymore because we're discussing it in our budget for the city. I mean, I think we could collapse this list, because not to lose these things, but maybe to move them to other places within the city that at least I think that they fit.
All of the projects you have listed qualify to be under urban renewal, but don't necessarily have to be under urban renewal, as Councilor Hinton states. That's where it becomes your priorities.
Any other discussions? So we're going to discuss these at length in our next work session?
At our next, in 2 weeks, at our next urban renewal regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
And be prepared to make a decision?
Ready tonight. I was ready 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
2 weeks before that.
No, that's fine. I only say that, Madam Chair, just so that people will use the next 2 weeks or so to review and be ready to make a decision. So,
And if there's any additional information that would be helpful to put in the next meeting packet for you, don't hesitate to let Mr. Chandler know, and I'll make sure that that's in the packet. Okay, you have a move on?
Move on.
Okay, this next item on the agenda is a minor amendment to the urban renewal plan. And this is basically to correct a Scribner error that the bond council had caught. We had in our plan that we would terminate not later than June 30th of 2014, when in actuality that should be June 30th of 2024. So when we went back to the overlapping taxing districts, in 2014, we had asked for a 10-year extension in order to collect our remaining maximum indebtedness funds, of which this $3 million is the last of those funds. And so we would like to make that change, which you would do by resolution, which we have on your agenda this evening. Are there any questions on this? It's kind of urban renewal speak, legalese speak.
We make a motion to revise it to 2024, the text.
So the staff report just kind of covers what it is and what the change would be, and then the resolution is in the packet, resolution number UR 2017-02, which is a resolution of the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Lincoln City, Oregon, approving a minor amendment to the amended and restated Year 2000 Development Plan, correcting a Scribner's error.
I'd make the motion to approve resolution number UR 2017-02.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution pass. Okay, public comment? No public hearing? Anything else, Allison?
No, thank you.
I know we have Riley's information here. Is that correct, Riley?
Yes.
What's increasing the,
Actions based on executive session, work session, we have none of those. Agency member comments? None of those? Any discussion from the counselors? Wow, at 5:49, I guess we are adjourned.
Good job.
Mics are off.
That I don't know. I mean, theoretically.
Question on that, Riley. Where was that distributed?
Online, through Facebook.
Through Facebook, okay. Is it any particular groups? Because I didn't see it, and I don't know who to look to find it.
It was my own, it was shared, I mean, I could.
On the Facebook page?